As you settle into this moment, allow your body to find its most comfortable position. There's no need to adjust or fix anything. Simply notice where you are and grant yourself permission to be exactly as you are right now. Take a slow, gentle breath in and then release it completely, letting your body sink a little deeper into the surface supporting you. Imagine now that you're standing at the edge of an ancient forest at dawn. The world is quiet here, wrapped in a gentle fog that weaves itself between old trees. This is a place outside of time, where the rush of daily life cannot find you. As your breathing continues to slow and deepen, picture yourself taking one step forward into this misty woodland realm. The fog touches your skin like cool silk. It's not the harsh dampness of rain, but rather a soft, gentle presence, as if the air itself has become visible, revealing its quiet dance around you. Between the silhouettes of trees, this living mist flows and curls, creating pathways that appear and disappear with each passing moment. There is something profoundly peaceful about being enveloped this way, partially hidden from the world, yet still connected to everything around you. The old trees stand like patient guardians. Their bark is textured with the stories of decades, perhaps centuries, of quiet witnessing. Some are wrapped in emerald moss at their bases, while others reveal the elegant patterns of their naked bark. Their branches reach upward, disappearing into the fog above. These trees have no schedule, no deadlines. They simply grow at their own pace, responding to the rhythms of nature rather than the artificial urgency that so often fills our human lives. With each breath you take, allow yourself to become a little more like these trees, rooted, present, unhurried. Feel your thoughts beginning to slow, no longer racing from one concern to the next. Just as the fog softens the forest's edges, let it gently blur the sharp corners of your thinking mind. Moving deeper into this misty woodland, you notice how sound travels differently here. Distant bird calls seem both muffled and somehow more intimate, as if the fog is holding these delicate sounds close to you. Your own footsteps are cushioned by decades of fallen leaves that have transformed into rich soil beneath your feet. Each step is a gentle connection with the earth, a small reminder of how we are all part of this continuous cycle of growth, release, and transformation. There's a subtle luminosity to this fog, especially where weak sunlight manages to filter through. It's not the harsh brightness of midday, but rather a diffuse, pearl-like glow that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. This gentle illumination reminds us that even in our cloudiest moments, light is still present, perhaps not in the direct, unmistakable way we might prefer, but in a softer form that requires us to slow down and notice its subtle presence. As you walk, you may find yourself naturally breathing in rhythm with your steps. There's no need to control this. Simply notice if it happens. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. This forest has its own rhythm too, the almost imperceptible swaying of branches, the gradual unfurling of ferns, the patient growth of trees reaching skyward year after year. When we step into nature, we're reminded of these older, wiser tempos that existed long before the hurried pace of our modern lives. The fog between these old trees plays with your perception. What looked like a solid wall of mist parts as you approach, revealing new vistas, new trees, new possibilities. How often in life do our perceived obstacles dissolve when we simply continue moving forward with gentle persistence? The things that appear most solid from a distance, our worries, our limitations, our fixed ideas about what is possible, often reveal themselves to be as permeable as this morning mist when met with our patient attention. Pausing now in a small clearing, you notice how the fog moves almost like water, flowing around the trees, finding its own level, its own path of least resistance. There's wisdom in this quality, this ability to adapt to what is, rather than forcing a predetermined path. The fog doesn't fight against the trees, it embraces them, wraps around them, finds new shapes in response to their presence. Perhaps there are situations in your own life where this fluid adaptability might serve you better than rigid resistance. The old trees themselves seem unbothered by the fog's temporary embrace. They've experienced countless mornings like this one, countless weather patterns, seasons, years. There's something profoundly reassuring about their steadfast presence. In a world that often measures value by productivity and speed, these ancient beings remind us of the dignity in simply existing, in growing at one's natural pace, in providing shelter and support to the countless creatures that depend upon them. As you stand among these trees, notice how your breathing has deepened. With each inhale, imagine drawing in some of this forest's profound patience. With each exhale, release any tension you might be carrying, any sense that you should be somewhere else, doing something else, being someone else. In this moment, you are exactly where you need to be, experiencing exactly what you need to experience. The fog continues its slow dance between the trees, revealing and concealing different aspects of the forest. In some ways, this mist is not unlike the filter of our own perceptions, the ways our thoughts, beliefs, and past experiences color how we see the world. Sometimes, our mental fog obscures what's truly before us. Other times, it might actually help us focus on what matters by softening distracting details. Either way, this forest reminds us that all conditions, all states of mind, are temporary. The fog will eventually lift, as all things do in their own time. Moving forward again, you notice how the ground beneath your feet has a slight give to it, decades of fallen leaves, pine needles, and moss creating a natural cushion. Each step is met with gentle support, a reminder that the earth is always holding us, even when we forget to notice this fundamental relationship. Your footprints leave temporary impressions, just as you move through your life, leaving traces of your presence in the hearts and minds of others. Some of these impressions will fade quickly, like footprints in soft soil, soon erased by rain. Others might last longer, like the subtle paths that form in forests through repeated use. Between the old trees, you notice occasional gaps where sunlight penetrates more directly, creating spotlight effects, where the fog glows with an almost otherworldly luminescence. These pockets of brightness amid the general softness of the scene remind us of how our own clarity often comes in moments rather than constant states, brief intervals of seeing through the complexities of life to something essential and true. We don't need perpetual clarity to find our way. These intermittent glimpses of light are enough to guide us forward. The ancient trees have witnessed so much change, saplings growing to maturity, old trees returning to the earth, the constant cycle of seasons transforming the forest again and again. Yet amid all this change, there's a profound constancy to this place, a sense that while individual elements shift and transform, the essential nature of the forest remains. Perhaps we can find comfort in recognizing this same pattern in our own lives, beneath the constantly changing surface of our experiences, relationships, and circumstances. Something essential about who we are remains continuous. As you continue to move through this misty woodland, you might notice how your sense of time begins to shift. Here among these old trees, wrapped in fog, the urgent timelines that usually structure your days seem distant and less compelling. The forest operates on a different clock. The slow growth of trees measured in decades, the gradual turning of seasons, the patient transformation of fallen leaves into new soil. This decelerated sense of time is a gift, an invitation to step out of the rushed current of our daily lives and into a more spacious relationship with the passing of moments. The fog between the trees creates a natural boundary between what's visible and what remains hidden. Just a few feet ahead, details become indistinct, reminding us that we never truly see the whole picture at once. We navigate our lives with limited information, catching glimpses of what's before us, but never grasping the entirety. There's a humble wisdom in recognizing these limitations, in acknowledging that our perspective is always partial, always influenced by where we stand. The fog doesn't obscure the truth of the forest. It simply reminds us that revelation comes gradually, in its own time. Notice how the experience of walking through this misty woodland activates all your senses. The cool touch of dampness on your skin, the earthy fragrance of soil and vegetation, the muffled sounds of the forest, the visual poetry of light and shadow playing through the fog. This full-bodied awareness is a gentle homecoming, a return to the sensory richness that's always available when we slow down enough to notice. So much of our stress comes from living in abstract thoughts about the past and future, forgetting the simple aliveness available in each moment. The old trees stand with such natural dignity, They don't strain or struggle to be more impressive than they are. Each one simply occupies its space, growing according to its nature and the specific conditions of its location. Some grow tall and straight, others twist and bend in response to light or wind or neighboring trees. None of these variations make any tree more or less a tree. This quiet authenticity reminds us that our own worth isn't measured by conforming to some external standard, but by fully embodying our unique nature. The fog weaving between these trees is neither good nor bad, it simply is. Some creatures of the forest might find it inconvenient, while others use it as protective cover. The trees themselves neither resist nor cling to it, knowing it will pass in its own time. What if we could approach the changing conditions of our own lives with this same equanimity, not labeling our experiences as right or wrong, but simply meeting what arises with curious presence, trusting in the natural unfolding of things? As you continue your walk, you may notice the occasional sound of water droplets gathering on leaves and branches, growing heavy enough to fall to the forest floor. There's a delicate music in this, the quiet patter creating a sporadic, gentle rhythm. These droplets form when the fog touches something solid, a beautiful reminder of how our own abstract thoughts and feelings can crystallize into clearer understanding when they encounter the solid ground of direct experience. The old trees create natural archways and corridors through this misty landscape. There's an architectural quality to their arrangement, though no human hand designed it. This organic ordering emerged over time through countless interactions between soil, seeds, weather, and wildlife. How different from the way we often approach our own lives, trying to control and design every element rather than trusting the inherent wisdom of natural processes. Perhaps there are areas in your life that would benefit from a little less control and a little more trust in how things naturally unfold. Moving through a particularly dense patch of fog, you might experience a momentary disorientation, a gentle uncertainty about which direction leads forward. Rather than responding with anxiety, allow yourself to simply pause here. Feel your feet making solid contact with the earth. Listen to the subtle sounds around you. This temporary uncertainty doesn't require immediate resolution. Sometimes the wisest response to not knowing is simply to be still and attentive, trusting that clarity will return in its own time. The relationship between the fog and the trees offers a beautiful metaphor for how we might relate to the transient nature of our own thoughts and emotions. The trees don't attempt to grasp or hold onto the fog as it flows around them. They simply stand in their rootedness, allowing the mist to come and go. In the same way, we can learn to recognize our thoughts and feelings as passing phenomena, sometimes obscuring our view, sometimes bringing beauty and mystery, but always changing, always in motion. Between the old trees, you might notice younger saplings reaching toward whatever light filters through the canopy above. These younger trees grow in the protective presence of their elders, benefiting from the rich soil created by generations of fallen leaves. There's a profound interconnection here, a reminder that none of us truly grows alone. We are all nourished by those who came before us, just as we will someday nourish those who come after. This continuous cycle of giving and receiving is woven into the very nature of existence. The fog creates a natural intimacy in this forest, limiting how far you can see and bringing your attention to what's immediately present. In our everyday lives, we often miss what's right before us because we're looking so far ahead or behind. This misty woodland invites a different kind of attention, more immediate, more intimate, more fully engaged with the few feet of world that are clearly visible. There's a surprising richness in this narrowed focus, a depth of perception that becomes possible when we're not trying to take in everything at once. As you continue walking, you might notice how the quality of light is gradually shifting. Perhaps the sun is rising higher, or perhaps you're moving toward a less densely wooded area. Either way, there's a subtle brightening, a sense that the fog is becoming more luminous. This gradual transformation happens so slowly that you can't pinpoint exactly when it began. Much like the way our own inner shifts often occur, not in dramatic moments of sudden change, but through subtle, almost imperceptible movements toward greater clarity or peace. The old trees, with their deeply furrowed bark, speak to the beauty of aging naturally. Unlike in human society, where signs of age are often treated as flaws to be hidden, in the forest, the oldest trees are the most majestic, their weathered exteriors telling stories of resilience and endurance. What might it feel like to embrace the natural changes in your own body and life with this same appreciation, seeing the marks of time not as imperfections, but as testaments to a life fully lived? Between the trees, the fog creates a sense of mystery, a reminder that not everything needs to be fully known or understood. In our information-saturated world, we often feel that we should have clear answers for everything, that uncertainty is something to be eliminated rather than embraced. This misty woodland offers a different perspective, one where mystery is not a problem to solve, but a natural dimension of experience to be honored and even enjoyed. Notice how the fog both connects and separates elements of the forest. It weaves between trees, creating a continuous medium that links distant parts of the woodland. Yet, at the same time, it creates gentle boundaries, softly defining different spaces. This dual nature, both connecting and differentiating, mirrors something essential about our own relationships. We are simultaneously individual beings with our own distinct experiences and inseparably connected to the larger web of life around us. As you move through a particularly beautiful section of this foggy forest, you might feel a natural impulse to capture it somehow, to take a mental photograph or find words that could adequately describe it to someone else. Notice this desire to hold onto experience and then gently let it go. The true gift of this moment isn't something you can possess or preserve, but rather something you can fully experience as it unfolds, and then release with the same openness with which you received it. The old trees in this misty woodland have weathered countless storms. Some bear the marks of lightning strikes or broken branches that have healed in unexpected ways. These aren't imperfections, but rather signs of a life fully engaged with the elements, a willingness to stand exposed to both nurturing sunlight and powerful winds. Our own wounds and recoveries can be viewed with this same perspective, not as flaws that diminish us, but as evidence of our capacity to endure, to heal, to continue growing despite difficulties. The fog between the trees reminds us of the space that exists between all things, the breathing room that allows each entity to be fully itself, while still remaining in relationship with everything around it. In human connections, we sometimes forget the importance of this space, trying to eliminate all boundaries in the name of closeness. But true intimacy honors separation as much as union, recognizing that it's the space between notes that creates music, the pause between words that gives meaning to speech. As you continue walking, you might notice areas where the fog appears to be gradually thinning, allowing more detail to emerge. Other sections remain densely obscured. This variation creates a naturally shifting experience, moments of greater clarity followed by periods of mystery and partial seeing. Our own journey through life follows similar patterns, with seasons of clear understanding giving way to times of uncertainty and limited perspective. There's wisdom in recognizing that both states have their purpose, their gifts, their necessary place in the cycle of experience. The forest floor beneath your feet contains layers upon layers of transformation, leaves that were once high in the canopy, now slowly returning to soil that will nourish new growth. This continuous cycle of release and renewal happens without resistance or regret. The leaves don't cling to the branches when their time comes to fall, nor does the soil resist becoming something new. This natural surrender to the processes of change offers a profound template for how we might approach the inevitable transformations in our own lives. Between the old trees, you might occasionally glimpse small clearings where the fog swirls in different patterns, responding to subtle variations in temperature and air movement. These dynamic formations appear and dissolve in endless variation, never exactly repeating themselves. Like our own thoughts and emotional states, they are constantly in flux, arising from conditions, expressing themselves briefly, and then transforming into something new. There's a freedom in recognizing this impermanence, not as a loss to be mourned, but as the very thing that allows for continuous renewal and fresh possibility. The quiet of this misty woodland has a different quality than the absence of sound we sometimes experience in human-created environments. This isn't the dead silence of soundproofed rooms, but rather a living quietness filled with subtle activity, the occasional bird call, the soft drip of moisture from leaves, the distant rustle of some small creature moving through underbrush. This is the difference between emptiness and spaciousness. One is a mere lack, while the other is a presence, an openness filled with potential. As you continue your journey, you might notice how your own presence affects the fog around you. Your movement creates gentle currents, temporary pathways that close behind you as you pass. The warmth of your body might cause slight variations in the mist, small eddies forming and dissolving in your wake. This mutual influence reminds us that we are never merely passive observers of our environment, but active participants in a continuous exchange. We shape our surroundings even as they shape us, each responding to the presence of the other. The old trees stand in community with one another. Though they might appear separate, beneath the surface, their root systems communicate, even sharing nutrients and information through complex networks facilitated by fungi. This hidden interconnection reminds us that what appears most solid and individual may actually be part of a larger, more fluid wholeness. Our own sense of separate selfhood is similarly both real and partial. We are distinct beings and simultaneously expressions of something more expansive than our individual identities. Between these trees, the fog creates a natural softening of boundaries. Where exactly does one tree end and another begin when both are partially veiled in mist? Where does the forest floor end and the fog begin when both share the same subtle coloration in this diffuse light? This gentle blurring invites us to loosen our own rigid categorizations, to recognize the fluid nature of the boundaries we so often treat as fixed and impermeable. Without abandoning useful distinctions, we might hold them more lightly, with greater appreciation for the continuous nature of reality. As you move through a particularly beautiful section of this misty woodland, you might notice a natural slowing of your pace, an inclination to linger and absorb the quiet beauty around you. This spontaneous deceleration is the body's wisdom, its natural response to an environment that invites deeper presence. How different from the artificial acceleration that characterizes so much of modern life, where we override our natural rhythms in service to external demands. This forest reminds us that there is another way of moving through the world, one more attuned to the actual needs of the moment. The fog between the old trees is democratic in its embrace, wrapping equally around the most majestic oak and the smallest fern. It doesn't discriminate based on size or species or apparent importance. In the same way, the present moment makes itself available to all beings without preference or judgment. Presence doesn't need to be earned or achieved. It simply awaits our attention, offering itself as generously to the beginner as to the master, as fully in ordinary moments as in extraordinary ones. Notice how the experience of this forest engages all of your senses simultaneously, creating an integrated field of perception rather than a series of separate sensations. The cool dampness on your skin, the earthy fragrance of soil and vegetation, the muted sounds and diffused sights all blend together into a single rich experience of forest. This natural integration reminds us that our tendency to fragment experience into disconnected pieces is a learned habit, not an inherent necessity. Beneath our analytical divisions, direct experience remains whole. The old trees reach their branches into the mist above, creating a cathedral-like atmosphere, a natural sanctuary where the vertical dimension opens into mystery. Throughout human history, we've created sacred spaces that echo this same upward movement, this same meeting of the solid and the intangible. Perhaps our constructed temples and churches are attempts to recreate something we intuitively recognize in forests like this one, the natural architecture that invites us to expand our awareness beyond the immediate and tangible into the realm of possibility and wonder. Between these trees, the fog creates natural veils that are continuously lifting and descending, revealing and concealing different aspects of the forest. This rhythmic disclosure mirrors something essential about how understanding comes to us, not all at once in a single moment of complete revelation, but gradually, partially, in a dance of insight and mystery. One moment we see clearly, the next, the view becomes obscured. This cycling between knowing and not knowing is not a failure of perception, but rather its natural movement. As your journey through this misty woodland continues, you might notice how your internal state has begun to mirror the external landscape, thoughts becoming less rigid and defined, moving with the same gentle fluidity as the fog between the trees. This harmonizing of inner and outer experience happens naturally when we give ourselves fully to our surroundings, when we temporarily set aside our preoccupations and allow ourselves to be shaped by the world we're moving through. The old trees demonstrate a kind of patience that has become rare in our accelerated world. They grow at their own pace, responding to the actual conditions of soil and light rather than to artificial timelines. A branch reaches out not because it should or because it's behind schedule, but because conditions support that growth in this moment. What might it feel like to approach your own life with this same organic timing, not forcing development according to external expectations, but attuning to the natural rhythm of your unique circumstances? Between the trees, you might notice how the fog responds differently to various surfaces, flowing around some obstacles, clinging to others, creating ever-changing patterns of density and transparency. This adaptability offers a model for how we might meet the diverse situations in our own lives, not with a single fixed approach, but with responsive flexibility, allowing our engagement to be shaped by the specific qualities of each circumstance we encounter. As you continue walking, you may become aware of a subtle shift in your attention. Rather than focusing on reaching a destination, you might find yourself simply enjoying the act of moving through this beautiful space. The misty woodland has gently altered your relationship to purpose, inviting a more process-oriented awareness, where the journey itself becomes the point, rather than merely a means to some future end. This shift from destination to journey happens naturally when we're fully engaged with the richness of our immediate experience. The old trees with their deeply textured bark offer a striking contrast to the smooth, amorphous quality of the fog that weaves between them. This interplay of distinct form and formless flow creates much of the visual poetry of this scene. In our own lives, we experience a similar complementary relationship between structure and fluidity, between the defined patterns that give shape to our days and the open spaciousness that allows for spontaneity and fresh emergence. Both elements are essential. Neither is complete without the other. Notice how the forest holds both movement and stillness simultaneously. The fog is in constant motion, shifting and flowing between the trees, yet there's also a profound stillness to this place, a sense of deep quiet beneath the subtle movements of air and moisture. This complementary relationship between motion and rest reflects something essential about the nature of being alive. We are simultaneously changing and continuous, flowing and stable. Our bodies constantly renew their cells while maintaining their basic form. Our minds stream with ever-changing thoughts while carrying forward a sense of continuous identity. As your walk continues, you might become aware of how this misty woodland has affected your breathing. Perhaps it has deepened without any conscious effort on your part, naturally finding a slower, more expansive rhythm. The moist air might feel especially nourishing as it fills your lungs, a reminder of the constant exchange between your body and the surrounding world. With each breath, you receive something of this forest into yourself, and with each exhalation, you contribute your own essence back to the shared atmosphere. Between the old trees, the fog creates a natural softening of light, diffusing the sun's rays so that they arrive as a gentle glow rather than harsh, directional beams. This quality of illumination allows us to see differently, noticing subtle variations in tone that might be washed out in more dramatic lighting. There's wisdom in this gentler seeing, a reminder that the brightest light doesn't always reveal the most. Sometimes it's in the soft, indirect illumination that we perceive nuances otherwise lost to us. The misty woodland seems to exist in a time of its own, not aligned with clocks or calendars, but with the more fundamental rhythms of light and darkness, growth and rest, moisture and dryness. Moving through this environment invites us to temporarily step out of chronological time and into what some traditions call deep time or eternal time, a more expansive experience where moments are not measured by their duration, but by their depth and quality of presence. As you near the end of your journey through this foggy forest, you might notice a sense of having been gently altered by the experience. Perhaps your senses feel more alive, your mind quieter, your body more relaxed. This is the gift of immersive experiences in natural settings. They recalibrate us, restoring a more balanced relationship between our inner and outer worlds. Even as you prepare to leave this misty woodland behind, something of its quality remains with you, a subtle influence that continues to shape your way of being. The old trees and weaving fog have offered a temporary sanctuary, a place apart from the noise and demands of ordinary life. As you begin the transition back, carry with you not just memories of what you've seen, but the deeper qualities this place has awakened: patience, adaptability, appreciation for mystery, comfort with the continuous dance of revelation and concealment. These aren't souvenirs to be stored away, but living capacities that can inform how you move through each moment of your life. Allow yourself to rest now in the lingering effects of this journey: the quieted mind, the open senses, the body that has found its natural rhythm. There's nothing you need to do with this experience, no way you need to use it or make it productive. Simply receive it as a gift, allowing its influence to continue working in you in ways both noticeable and subtle. Like the fog weaving between old trees, let this peaceful awareness flow through the different regions of your being, touching everything with its gentle presence.